Hey y'all, peace. So y'all, I'm so excited prematurely, but just excited by the possibility. So I've said in other videos my situation with having a factor 5 Leiden mutation, which is it's when the factor 5 protein in your blood mutates, and so it can cause your blood to clot, like clump up and clot, which is very, very bad. I didn't even know anything about it until I just out the blue got a bunch of blood clots in both my lungs about 3 years ago now. I guess it's been 3 years. And it was extremely painful and extremely scary. And they didn't know why I had blood clots when I presented to the ER. And because I had no like pre-existing anything, don't smoke, no, the usual suspects. So smoking, birth control, like nothing happened to me where I should have blood clots. They didn't start in my calves or anything like that. And so they were like perplexed. And so they ended up doing, within all the other testing, they did a factor 5 test and said that I have factor 5. That was really crazy because it had never presented in me at any time. Even with having children, usually it will pop up in women during childbearing years, or like if they have too much estrogen, so like hormonal treatment and stuff like that. So I had nothing, but they found it. And so from there, it was like, okay, you have to be put on Coumadin. You have to have an anticoagulant, and it has to be lifelong because there's no cure for factor 5. It's genetic. Did I say that? It's a genetic disorder. And nobody in my family has ever heard of anybody in my family having it, so I don't know. But that's what they said, and they said I needed to be on anticoagulants or blood thinners. And so we started out on trying to work with Coumadin. But with Coumadin, is really, really inexpensive. It was like less than $7, I think, for a 30-day supply. But the thing with Coumadin is you have to regularly get your PTINR checked. So that's to see how fast your blood clots. And so you have to, it depends on if it's stabilized or not, because I work with people, they only go like every 2 months, maybe 3 months to get theirs checked. I was going like 2 to 3 times a week because mine was not stable. And so while the medication itself is inexpensive, the little finger prick is like $125. So do the math, right? Thankfully at the time I was able to get insurance, state medical insurance. So that wasn't working out because I had to keep coming and I had to keep switching the dosage, So they were like, all right, let's try this Eliquis. Eliquis, on the other hand, is $600 a month for the medication, but you don't have to do any, testing. But bear in mind, if your PTINR is, say, steady, all you have to put out every month until your next lab is like $7, less than $7, versus $600. So there you go. And I did a whole other video or two on me now getting my medication, my Apaxaban, which is what Eliquis is. Eliquis is just a name brand. So I get that now through a Canadian pharmacy, and where it would cost me $1,800 here in America to get Apaxaban for a 3-month supply, it only cost me $96 for a 3-month supply out of Canada. And it's purely legal, of course. So that's what I'm doing now. But what I'm excited about is, so I just found it crazy that I would have, a factor 5. And I was on a couple of Facebook like communities that deals with like they take Eloquist for Fact to Five or for different issues, but some people on the I think I'm in so many groups I forget what they are because I never like go to them. I believe I'm on the Fact of Five or two groups, but nonetheless, I asked questions in there like, this is really weird to me that it just popped out the blue, like it never came before. And some people like, well, that's what happens. It just pops up, this kind of thing. But it just doesn't make sense to me. But there were a couple of doctors, actually, they were all men doctors, all male doctors, who, and that's significant to me, and you'll see in a minute. Because a lot of the times, women who are like pro-women and stuff like that, they're like, go to the women because men don't understand your body and all that kind of thing. But, so, like 2 women and probably like 3 men, like doctors. I think. Anyway, so they were telling me, no, how can I say this? So the one male doctor, he told me that I had blood clots once. I think I'm not seeing it in the right order, which is why I'm like acting skittish. So my hematologist is a woman. My hematologist, because I was in and out the hospital all the time a few years ago. They ended up doing, at the emergency room, they ended up doing another MRI, and they couldn't figure out between them if what they saw were blood clots or not. So they ended up calling radiology. I think radiology said no. I don't remember what their answer was, but I do remember that there were like 3 different doctors in there, and they couldn't decide. Like, one would say yes, the other one would say no, whatever. And so, like I said, they ended up having to call radiology. So, when you're in a hospital, you have to do like a 2 to 3 day follow-up at the clinic so they can assess you and make sure like what's going on or whatever. So my NP wasn't there. I had to see another doctor who just happens to be like a specialist in the field. So he looked at it, at the the results, the x-ray or whatever, and he said no. I told him what happened. He says, no, they're not clots, like it's atelectasis. Atelectasis is like kind of like scar tissue almost, like where the clots were. So he said, no, that's not what they are. They're like nodes, So I'm like, oh, okay. But my hematologist, when I went to see her, she was like, no, they're clots. And so it was like maybe 2 or 3 times I tried to have a conversation with her. And one of the things I don't necessarily like about my hematologist, well, she's technically still my hematologist, though I haven't been to her in several months. But what I don't appreciate about her is I think she's very condescending. You know how I think a lot of professional people feel like, you know what you're talking about. I'm a professional here. Just shut up and go with what I'm telling you. That's how she kind of acts to me. Like, she's nice and everything, but if I start questioning her or saying like, well, what about this or what about that? Is this a possibility? She's like, no, I told you what it is. And like literally she'll say like, I told you. And I'm like, well, damn, you know what I mean? What happened to patients' rights? Like, I don't have the right to question about my own health. But anyway, so it's that. So there were a couple of other doctors that I went to who were male, and one of the reasons why they looked into the factor 5 in the first place is because they didn't have any reason to, why I got blood clots in my lungs. And again, they hadn't started in my legs. So that was a big thing for them. And so I said to one of the male doctors who was, see, this is, Also, I'm a nurse, just by the way, so I'm not just like some sort of conspiracy theorist. Like, when somebody doesn't necessarily speak or believe in the status quo, what mainstream thought is, people immediately say you're a conspiracy theorist. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I work with these people all the time. So, but what I realize is that hospital workers, hospital staff, whatever, hospital professionals, oftentimes don't know what the hell they're talking about. It's like it could be something simple. Like, I remember one time I was in the hospital, and they were asking me, the nurse, she asked me what medications I take. And so I told her, and I said, ferrous sulfate, which is iron, and vitamin C. And she asked me why the vitamin C, I guess. Or either I just offered it, I don't know. But I said, I take the vitamin C for the iron so it can absorb. Because your body, if you don't know this, your body doesn't absorb iron. You have to have citrus with it in order for it to absorb. And so she was like, oh, I never thought about that before. I'm like, did you not go to nursing school? like we are taught this in nursing school. But I mean, sometimes people, you forget what everything you learn, but you would think that this is protocol because it's iron. But the truth of the matter is, I get ferrous sulfate all the time, and the doctor does not have anything in the orders for the patient to take vitamin C. Like, nowhere. We give iron all the time, but we can't just simply give vitamin C. We can't do anything. We can't give an eye drop. We can't even give a cough drop or a Tums without a doctor's order. We just can't. We're not allowed. And you ain't trying to lose your license because somebody got a little cough or something like that. So yeah, all the time. And this is like basic nursing, like 096 or whatever is lower than that. So, so I had to go to one doctor. He was a neurologist, actually, because I was having like really, 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 really bad vertigo, and they couldn't figure out why at all. I had all kinds of testing done, and they couldn't figure it out. Had to have sleep tests, all this kind of thing. They couldn't figure it out, so they sent me to the neurologist. And at the time, it was before my hysterectomy, so I still had a lot of really heavy bleeding issues. I was a chronic anemic. My hemoglobin was like stupid low. And, all this is going on. And so, he questioned me and asked me questions about it. And I said, and I had said this to the doctors at the hospital in the emergency room, because it's like, well, I don't understand why you keep getting lightheaded. I'm like, but I'm anemic and I'm losing crazy blood like every 3 weeks. It's like, no, I don't think that's it. You know what I mean? And so when I went to the neurologist, he was like this is why you're going through this. Like, you're going to feel these things. And so we were talking about the fibroids and everything, and the blood clots. And I said, they said that it must be a genetic disorder because the blood clots didn't start in my legs, and like they would have to start there or whatever. He was like, no, it can start in your pelvis. And I think that must have been the first time I ever heard that. So I'm like, oh. But for me, it was making me feel like, one, I'm not tripping. There can be an alternative. There can be an alternative reason for these things happening. But I'm like, okay. So then I don't know if I spoke to another doctor about that too. About that in particular, the pelvis. But I did hear, like, a woman made a video, a testimony. She was talking to other women about taking control of our health. Stop sitting around, letting things linger and linger. And also stop using that as some sort of badge, which I agree with her. We do tend to do that sometimes. Like, like we compete almost with our pains and stuff like that. Ooh, girl, I have fibroids too. You did, girl, but I was just bleeding like crazy. Girl, me too. I was bleeding for like 4 whole days straight. Girl, I was bleeding for 7 whole days straight. Girl, I was in the hospital. This kind of thing. And it's like, I had to get a hysterectomy. Oh, I got a hysterectomy too. Girl, but I went into a coma. It's like, and so the woman in her video was saying like, all right, ladies, we need to stop doing this. We need to stop wearing our ill health and our sicknesses as some sort of badges and competition against other women. And so she went into talking about her friend who nearly died because she had blood clots in her lungs. Like, she was in excruciating pain or whatever, went to the hospital, to the ER. They found she had blood clots, and the cause of the blood clots was her fibroid issue. Some of her fibroids had broken off and traveled to her lungs. And it was like all this stuff she had to go to. But bing, I'm like, whoa. So the doctor told me it could be in your starting your pelvis, or all this kind of stuff. So I'm like, yo, that makes total sense. So I'll go to my hematologist about it, and she's just like, that can't happen. Like, how you know it can't happen? Like, yeah, but I was at a doctor and he said it could start in your pelvis. No, it does. It can't start in your pelvis. Okay. So then I emailed my gynecologist, who's a woman, of course. And I said, listen, I really want to get off this Eliquis. I'm questioning the whole factor 5 thing and wondering if the clots could have been from my fibroids. And I mentioned the doctor because, again, they look at you like you're an idiot. I already told you what it is. What more you need? I've been doing this for 30 years. You know what I mean? So I'm like, okay, the other dude been doing it for 30 years too. When he said, so she hit me back and she's like, and she's nice. I really like her a lot or whatever. But she hit me back and said, like, I never heard of that before. So I do what any sensible thinking person would do. I asked Google, you ever hear this before? And lo and behold, it is an actual thing. I forget, I'm gonna try to put here somewhere what it's called, because I forget the actual name for it. Pelvic thrombosis, I think it is. But anyway, it's actually a thing. So 18 minutes later, I'm going to finally tell you why I'm so excited. I don't know why it just did not come to me before, because I've gotten labs on my own, like, without a doctor's order and stuff, because there are like Quest Diagnostic in different places where you can go and get lab work, like a full workup done, and you just pay out of pocket. And so today I was just like, let me check and see if I can get a factor 5 test done. And sure enough, I can get one done without a doctor. So inshallah, I'm going to do that. I'm going to, I actually just called one of the hospitals, one of the labs that a nearby hospital uses, to see if they do it, if I could pay out of pocket. I'm waiting for someone to call me back. But there is another place that I found online who works through Quest Diagnostic. And what it says on this site is that you can, for factor 5, you put in the request, and then one of their medical doctors looks at it, and if it seems like, yeah, you should probably go ahead and get this, because factor 5 is just a regular smuggler test. Other tests you don't have to do that with. They have, like I said, like a full workup, so your lipids, so your cholesterol and stuff like that, they'll look at. They'll do for you. You don't need a doctor to look at or anything. But with this, you do. And so I think I'm gonna do it. It's only $167, which is fine by me, honey, because I want to know what's wrong. And I am not one of those people who just, like a doctor's word is God. Do you know any doctors? If you know doctors and nurses or whoever else, they just regular old people. You be like, people listen to your ass because you's a fool. But like, if like if it's a loved one you have or something, it's like, I can't believe your drunk ass people come to you and let you put your finger up in them and stuff like that. They're just regular people. So I'm not just like, oh, well, he said, you know what I mean? And then especially when you have ones, like I said, my hematologists who are just so smug and like don't want to hear anything. This is what I learned in school. You don't know because you didn't go to school for this, okay? So I'm really excited. Pray for me that I can actually do it. And whether I actually need to be taking these stupid blood thinners or not, I at least want to have another opinion of what's up, what's popping with this. I don't really want to let them know any other information because I want it to be non-biased if at all possible. Because if they see something that could just be like a little smudge, it's like, yeah, what the other one said she do or whatever. I don't want that. I want to know for certain. What's my blood telling you? What am I saying? Forget everybody else. What's my blood saying? So hopefully it'll work out, y'all. I will keep you posted. You know that. Peace.